Welcome back. My name is Guy, and this is the 5th episode I'm doing of building a curved front walnut buffet. This time I'm going to make the drawers. 2 of them have these curved fronts on it, and I had to do some pretty interesting joinery to get these to work. I'm also going to be making the top. Now the top is actually plywood. I'm using book matched curly walnut veneer on it. I've got a solid walnut frame surrounding it, and also this really nice 2-color inlay going around it. So stick around, we got a lot of work to do. I've got the drawer guides installed now, and I also have the kicker for the drawer, so I can start making those drawers. I've got all the drawer sides complete, and this is a groove for the bottom, and this is a groove or a dado for the back panel. Now, these are going to have to be done a little bit different because I can't just run this over the dado stack and get a groove in the bottom. I need to do that over at the router table. Now at the router table, I've got a what they call a wing style cutter. This is a 1/4 inch, the same as I had my dado stack set up. So I've taken one of the boards and I've raised it up so that cutter just fits. Now I've got one of the curved drawer fronts here, and I've made a little mark to make sure I put it on the right side or run the groove on the right side. If I try to run this over the router table with that bearing bit, it's not very secure. So I'm going to take one of the forms that I've been using all along on this project, put it on there, and I can add a couple clamps to it, and I can make sure that this stays stable as I run it through the router. With all the parts cut out for the drawers, I'm getting ready to glue them up. I'm going to do this a little backwards. I'm going to be doing the sides to the back first and using the front as a way to position everything, but I'm not going to glue the front piece in just yet. That's perfect. I'm just going to leave this right as it is and not touch it for about 2 or 3 hours, let that glue set up. I've got these marked out already. I'm going a 1/4 inch in, I'm going 3/4 inch down, 1 inch up. I have to make sure I don't get into the groove down here in the bottom for the drawer. So I'm going to put some glue on this, and then I'll clamp this up, and then we'll get to drilling. Now with this held in place, I'm going to get the top one in first. Now this is the tough one because I don't want to blow through the back here. So I've marked a line on top just so I can sight down and keep my drill straight. And I put a blue tape flag on here. So I'm just going to put it in where it's got to go. I'm going to sight down, trying to keep this straight. I'm not too concerned about this all that much, but mainly this way. So if I stop right before this tape line, I won't blow out through the other side in the back. Now with that hole drilled, I can just take a dowel, and these are 1/4 inch walnut dowels I made myself. I'm just going to stick them in that hole, and I'm going to pound it in until I hear it hit bottom. These 3 pieces here are going to be the drawer bottoms. Now they're maple, they're 1/2 inch thick, and they're rough sized, of course. So I need to fit them to the drawers themselves. So I need to take some measurements from these insides of these dados here, cut them to width, cut them to length, and then I need to start working on getting this curve cut in the front. Well, I need to bevel the bottoms of the drawers so they fit in the grooves in the drawers. So I've got my table saw set up with the blade tilt. I really don't know what angle is, it's an arbitrary angle, but I've played around with the settings a little bit so it fits in there nice. I've got this auxiliary fence which is 90 degrees to my table. I just need to stand these panels up like this and run it through. Well, here's the top all taped up. It came out really, really nice. I also have some backer veneer over here, which is white oak, which I'm going to be putting on obviously the back of the plywood substrate. Now, before I get asked a question in the comments below, this is cold pressed veneer glue. It's a type of PVA. This one's specially formulated to leave a very rigid glue line. It's made by Unibond. It's called Unibond 1, and I really like it. I really want to make sure that this is laying nice and flat. I don't think it's going to move around in the bag at all, so there's no need to tape it. So I'll make sure it's flat along that seam. Flat all the way across there. I just need to put this in the bag. Now I've got a caul underneath it. I'll put another caul on top. And this is just masonite with a wax coating on it. This will make sure everything stays flat through the clamping process. This is a little bit of breather nut. I'm going to put it over the hose fitting there so it doesn't collapse on it. All the air has been evacuated out of the bag, and it's looking real good. So I'm going to let this sit for about an hour, and I'm going to take it out of the bag. Well, the top is out of the bag. Everything looks real good. I'm just going to let this sit overnight before I do anything else with it. Now I can take this template here, line this edge up with this edge, and keeping it on that line, it should be flush in the front, which it is. Just take that and mark a line with a pencil. Now I've got the front cut on this, I can start worrying about the frame. Now there will be a solid wood frame on this. It's going to go 2 1/4 inches all the way around. I've made a mark here. I know you probably can't see it because I'm going to cut the sapwood off the edge, but it's set back, what, 2 7/8 from this on the flat part in front. Now that I've got that set in place, I'm just going to take a magic marker and mark around the front of this. Well, I've moved this piece forward the 2 1/4 inches. I'm just going to trace around this front piece again. Over the router table, I have that same bearing guided pattern bit, and I've made a pattern around for the inside of this. It's got to be really close, but it doesn't have to be exactly perfect because there's going to be an inlay between the frame and the field itself. I've got the front of the frame clamped to the top, and it came out really well. There was a couple gaps on this side right here. There was maybe a 32nd of an inch. I put a clamp on there to close it up, not a big deal. There's also a small gap here and a small gap here. They're pairing in the same place, so there's some kind of inconsistency somewhere I didn't see. I've got the rest of the edging cut for this, and it's 2 1/4 inches. I need to figure out what this angle is going to be, so I'm going to put this piece up against here like this. Draw a line. And I need to take a ruler and go from this point to this point. With that clamp securely in place, I can take my bevel gauge, put it up against here very carefully so I don't move anything, and then lock this down to that angle. So I'm going to be cutting the side pieces first, and I'm going to match that to this. So I'm going to take my bevel gauge. I know the angle has to go that way. And I'm going to give myself as much room as possible in case I make a mistake. I'm over here at my miter saw. I'm going to use the laser to my advantage. I'll lock it down. I'm going to make that cut. Now with the angle cut on this piece, I can bring it up to where I'm hitting this edge here and this edge here, hold it down, and strike a line with my marking knife. So I've got one of the cutoffs here, and I'm using this as a backer piece. I'm also using my clamp to hold it down. And I've used the laser to set the line. I'm going to cut actually a little fat, a little bit to the outside of that line. I just want to make a test cut to make sure that I'm right on first. With the front piece of the frame clamped back down to the top, I can take the piece I cut before and put it up against there, and I got really lucky on the first try. It's perfect. So I just need to perform the same procedure on the other side. I've got everything set on the front and the sides. I just need to put this back piece on. I've already checked these are perfect 90s here, so I just need to cut these at 45 degrees and fit this last back piece in. Well, it's all glued up. Everything seems flush to all the surfaces. That's what I'm really concerned about, is this veneer being flush to the edging. So everything closed up really well. I still have those two little gaps right here, which again, I'm not concerned about, but the miters are nice and tight. Everything is flat. I'm going to give it a few minutes, and I'm going to start cleaning up all this extra glue squeeze out. Well, I've cleaned up the surface of the table to give me a nice, even, level surface when I start to do the inlay. And this is my setup on the router. I've got an 1/8 inch spiral down cut bit. Remember, I'm cutting through the veneer and the wood here, and I want to make sure that I don't pull the fibers up. And I've also got an edge guide on here that has two little round pads on it. This will help follow the curve on the front. So I have to make this in 2 passes. The inlay I have is a little bit better than 3/16 of an inch thick. So I'll make the first pass, move the router bit in a little bit, and then make a second pass. Well, here's the inlay that I'm going to be using. A friend of mine, Freddie Roman, made this for me, and it's holly on the outside. On the inside, it's a poplar core that's been dyed black. Like I said, it's about 3/16 of an inch. And this is a 3-foot long section, so I need to put a couple scarf joints in for the longer areas. But first I need to cut this down to size on the bandsaw. I've got one piece of the inlay in here ready, and I'm getting ready to put the next piece in. It's just a matter of laying this in here like this. I need to chop this end to that miter, chop this end to this miter, put some glue in, pound it in, and then flush it smooth. Well, I've got all the inlay installed and pretty much flush to the top. There might be some additional sanding and scraping I need to do, but for the most part it's done. It's got a really great look. It came out really nice, and I'm really happy with it. I've got the whole top level down, and it's sanded down to 220. I've also put a 1/8 inch radius on the top and underneath. I've got a real nice smooth edge there. Top came out beautiful. I'm really happy with this inlay, and getting ready for the next step.